Paragus was nervous. His son had been born, and yet the doctors and carers were wary of this child. Why was that exactly? He didn't have any abnormalities, nor did he seem to have any cognitive dissonance. To the layman Saiyan, Broly was a perfectly average infant. But still, there was a level of nervous tension amidst the infirmary. Paragus had inquired as to the concern and careful instruction, but all the doctors would tell him was that Broly was of interest to them, to their studies, and that if not properly processed and investigated, it might stoke the ire of King Vegeta. I understand your wish to prepare your boy for the nursing capsule process of development, but we need more time to ascertain his potential. As you know, the king has certain limitations for those born outside of their caste. The last thing I would wish to happen to your son is for him to be liquidated. The doctor nodded meekly. Paragus looked to the chamber where his son was being poked and prodded, completely unaware as to the tests that were being done on him. He wasn't some kind of animal or alien. He was a Saiyan child. Disgraceful, muttered Paragus. In that time, Paragus managed to pull some strings with his connections amongst the Saiyan ranks to expedite the test run on his son, and a nursing capsule was eventually sourced, without the king finding out. It took many favours being called in for this to happen, but the deed was done. Broly had been spared ridicule and an indignant start to his life. He detested the manner in which his son was being paraded around by the scientists. It was a miracle, though, they hadn't cut him open. Then again, based on their findings, it might have been the last thing they ever did. According to one of his friends, in a secret report, Broly's S-cell readings were incredibly high. Higher than, in fact, Prince Vegeta, who was also in a capsule. That's why they were being careful. The only way for the king to not know would be to fudge the numbers, perhaps, place Broly's capsule far away from the young prince. The king was very proud of his son, and often ignored other Saiyan infants on his visits. This was Paragus' only option, so as his boy could at least grow enough to develop properly. For a while, all seemed well. But then a flunky had to just go ahead and slip up, as is the way. As you would know from the original story, King Vegeta wasn't best pleased to find out that another child from another class was somewhere where they shouldn't be, and given special treatment, and potentially more potent than his own son, the Crown Prince. Given the status of King Vegeta amongst the Saiyans, it would be foolish to allow this imp to run free, and so he called upon Paragus, when he found out the sire, to speak with him. No matter how many friends you have in high places, if you get rumbled, you're on your own. And so, Paragus got summoned to the monarch's throne room and asked more about his progeny, and why he hadn't gone through the proper channels, like he's supposed to. Paragus immediately retorted, knowing exactly what the proper channels were. And they weren't good for the boy. But yes, Broly got sent off-world, and without Paragus' knowledge. The king didn't really care about Paragus' thoughts, he just wanted to make him out to be stupid. And Commander was horrified. It was still too early for Broly to be removed from the capsule. He might end up with developmental issues. It was too difficult to tell, since the lad wasn't around to check. But Paragus had no clue where to start looking. The king didn't bother chasing after him though, when he found out some clues. It was a fruitless task. And even if he spent his days hopelessly searching for his kid, he'd at least be out of their hair. And as you know, Saiyans have quite a lot of hair. Well, okay Masako, how is this going to affect Broly himself? Would he end up on Vampa? Well, yes. And yes, Paragus would eventually find him as per the original story from the Broly movie. However, things would start to take a different shape not long after planet Vegeta was destroyed by Frieza. With Beerus going for his nap and disliking Saiyans with a passion, he tasked Frieza, the strongest mortal at the time, with dealing with the problem all by Beerus' directives and musings concerning the Super Saiyan God, as per his talkings with the Oracle Fish and his own thoughts. Even though this was sort of counterintuitive, the cat trusted his fish that fate would find a way, and thusly chose to proceed with his plan and his sleep schedule. A few years have passed since Broly and Paragus found themselves on Vampa. The situation wasn't the most ideal, and Paragus had no other sense of company other than his own son. However, they were free from King Vegeta and Frieza's influence, which was always a plus, despite the planet you were currently on being mostly comprised of yellow springs, dirt bowls, and bugs. Oh no, yeah, the occasional bat. The most curious thing starts on one of Whis' little jaunts. As you could probably imagine, with Beerus being capable of falling asleep for considerable amounts of time, mostly millennia, this would result with Whis not having much to do with himself. And that is until one day, when he was casually scanning the cosmos for potential planets for Beerus to destroy if he ever woke up. Out of boredom, Whis chose to expand the field of his scope for Universe 7, and then spotted the likes of Vampa. It intrigued him, so he chose to pay it a visit so as to pass the time. He didn't have anything else to do. After all, for his light-speed taxi service, it would only take him a couple of hours or so to get there and back. Beerus wouldn't even know that he had gone. When Whis got to Vampa, he could sense that life forms here were relatively basic. But as he approached the planet's surface and looked around a little closer, he could sense two beings that definitely did not belong on this world. They didn't match the signatures of other life forms whatsoever. In fact, he thought that these beings should have been wiped out long ago. Saiyans. This is definitely worth a closer look. With Whis' power set being essentially infinite, as the official writers like it, he cloaked his appearance and approached the two Saiyans, a father and his son. He got close to the father, Paragus, and used his staff to read his mind. Oh my. Whis found this entire experience rather fascinating. To see King Vegeta in full swing, without their influence curtailing his affections and decisions. My, he was such a bore, Whis thought. Also stupid. To have someone like this Broly be sent away was completely and utterly preposterous. Then there was the whole thing about the boy's power. That took Whis' interest the most. This boy's power was capable of outclassing the king's own boy? Already? Whew. Perhaps it had something to do with the Super Saiyan God vision that the Oracle Fish had talked about. What a happy stroke of luck, Whis thought. This was a perfect opportunity. He unmasked himself and formally introduced himself to Paragus. Good day, Saiyan. I have come seeking your audience. Paragus recognized the angel. Sort of. He had an idea that this was somebody related to Beerus. The clothes and the skin were tantamount to one of those angel things. But why was he here?
You! What are you doing here? Oh, what does Beerus want?
Whis was puzzled. Oh, Lord Beerus didn't send me here. I came of my own volition. Well, that was odd, Paragus thought. An angel doing things on their own? That was not what was supposed to happen. Whis did not choose to elaborate further, and instead inquired about Broly. How could this angel know about his own boy? It was never brought up when Beerus visited before on planet Vegeta. Whis did explain, though, that they know a lot about Saiyans and informed him about the destruction of planet Vegeta because he thought it was the right thing to do, obviously. Broly's father had mixed emotions about that. Granted, he was happy to know that the king paid the ultimate price for choosing to snub him and his boy, but also felt somber at the loss of his own homeworld, naturally.
What do you want from me?
I wish to examine your son. He has piqued my interest. Before Paragus could give his blessing, though, Whis was already walking over to the spot where Broly was currently resting and greeted him. Whis then proposed to spar with the boy. As you would know, Whis wouldn't have to lift a finger in anger, and so the cosmos would be happy with that. Broly fought, and his power slowly rose over time. Paragus was getting concerned. Broly's temper was known to be quite furious, and if he were to go above a certain point, Paragus wasn't sure whether he'd be able to subdue him. But Whis didn't seem at all fazed. In fact, he was enjoying this little moment. Broly frantically fighting and flailing his arms and doing nothing to him. But the increase in performance over time was noted. Whis then put Broly to sleep with a tap of his staff, and the rage that had filled the boy's eyes vanished instantly, and he was now sent to the land of Nod. Whis turned to Paragus and thanked him for his time. I'll be keeping my eye on him. I like the cut of his jib. You shall be seeing me again as well, Saiyan. Paragus then asked if there was anything that Whis wanted in exchange for this visitation. The angel waved his hand and asked for only one thing in return. Treat the boy well and train him hard. His mind is extremely clouded, and any negative stimuli from you or the environs could lead to something truly horrifying manifesting itself. No pressure. And with that, Whis vanished in a wisp of light, leaving Paragus with a purpose. He no longer was living here on Vampa with his boy, aimlessly attempting to survive. Now, he had been granted a task from those above, to prepare Broly for potentially great things. After all, the angels were capable of anything. Anything was possible. Perhaps this might lead to them receiving copious bounties for their hard work. His hard work. The years to come would be hard, but at least now Paragus had a plan. As those years marched on, Whis indeed kept a watchful eye on that world, yet he chose to watch mostly from afar, with the occasional visit to Vampa hidden in the shadows, so as to not further influence mortal affairs, and also see what Paragus would do. And sure enough, there was a cause for concern arising for the angel that was becoming more and more obvious over time. Yes, Broly had a temper, and his power was increasing very well, but Whis did not like the way that the kid was being controlled. Paragus had come up with an idea of the electric collar, to subdue Broly should he lose total faculties. Paragus had managed to increase his own power level more than the original as a byproduct from all of this more active training, but not nearly at the same clip as Broly. As Broly grew up more and more, Whis could sense that this was not going the way he wanted. What he hoped for was a Super Saiyan god, not a Super Saiyan animal, being controlled with deterrence and not being allowed to develop themselves properly. What was even the point of an angry power if it was being nurtured properly? He had seen enough. Paragus had done the basics, but it failed when it came to the nuances of raising a child for great things. And Whis noted, after having read Paragus' own thoughts, the fact that the Saiyans were treating Broly as an animal, and now Paragus was doing the same in a different justification. Oh, the irony. One day, when Broly was 10, Whis paid a visit, the first time he had properly shown his face to them since he first charged Paragus with the task of preparing Broly for his potential mission in life. Whilst Broly here was stronger than in the original state of events, this was not enough to appease Whis. He played it cool though, and asked Paragus how training was going, acting ignorant, to which the commander said, "Well,
I can assure you that I'm able to still keep Broly in check."
"In check, you say? And how do you do that? Your power is woefully below his." Paragus twitched with annoyance, but remained stoic. He pulled out a device, to which Broly flinched slightly, and we saw that. "Your boy seems awfully nervous of that thing. What does it do?" Whis playing dumb again.
"Should Broly become unwieldy, I can use this to, stop him in his tracks."
Whis looked seriously at him. He knew exactly what it did, having seen it for himself, but chose not to say that he knew. "I see. Well, I wish to spar with your boy once more. Would that be acceptable? And do not use that device. I can take whatever your boy can give." Whis and Broly sparred once more. Broly was keen to test his might again on this angel, having heard stories of him and Beerus from his father, and how much he showed up King Vegeta. Anyone who made the king out to be a fool always elicited a laugh from them both. Sure enough, Broly had improved. A lot. Whis was happy to fight this one. Still nothing compared to him, but the curve of improvement was very pleasing. If he kept it up at this rate, he might end up being stronger than Frieza. But then something happened which put that beyond doubt. Broly was starting to tire, and starting to lose his cool. Paragus was about to press the button, but Whis stretched a hand out to stop him from doing so. Something in Broly's eyes flickered yellow. A new sense of urgency overcame him. The power skyrocketed. But Whis was overjoyed. "Ooh, I knew it! There was something in there after all." The fight grew more entertaining for Whis, but then he tested Paragus. He pretended to stumble and look hurt to see what Paragus' reaction would be. Whis was perfectly fine, but he was proven right. Paragus instantly pressed the button, and Broly collapsed in agony at the shock of the collar. Twitching, the boy was convulsing, as the angel got up and calmly pressed his hand on Broly's brow, and the boy fell asleep. Any signs of pain melting away. The boy was at peace. Whis turned to Paragus and grabbed the remote from his hand and smashed it.
What are you doing? Without that control, Broly will become unstoppable. A wild animal.
And that is how you view your child? As some beast? I may not know much when it comes to raising mortal children, but even I know that a certain amount of compassion goes a long way. I've been watching you, Saiyan, and at first I was satisfied. But this, he looked at the crumpled remains of the collar, is disappointing in the extreme. I was going to grant you freedom from this world, a new home. But I feel that I must take matters now into my own hands. Whis rose Broly from the ground and hovered him over to the crook of his arm, Whis now carrying the sleeping child.
What is this?
I am taking your son. You stay here. If the Super Saiyan God is to truly be awoken, then these environs will simply not do. Nor will the tutelage. Paragus was losing his cool and tried to attack Whis out of desperation, to which the angel instantly rebuked it. Pitiful. You had your chance, Saiyan. You blew it. He tapped Paragus's head, and he was knocked out. When Paragus awoke, he could not remember Broly, and he could not remember he even had a son. All he knew is that he was here, on Vampa, for no reason. Alone. When Broly awoke, he found himself on a different world, with a pink sky, blue-green grass, and running water. Actual water. Immediately, the boy ran over to the stream and gulped tons of the stuff, before turning around and spotting the angel.
Hey, what is this place?
Broly spluttered after swallowing yet more water. This place? It's your new home. At least for now. I'm afraid things soured at your previous abode.
Soured? Wait, where's my father?
That is the sour part. Your father was disappointed at your performance and promptly disowned you. As you could tell, Whis was straight up lying, for his own benefit. Broly wanted to hope he was lying, but angels seemed to give off such a convincing aura that to the Saiyan, what Whis was saying was true. The boy lay down and cried at having been abandoned, but he didn't lose control for some reason. He noted that.
Huh? What?
He then touched his neck. The collar was gone. We showed him the remains of the collar and dropped them to the ground. This will no longer be bothering you. From now on, I will be here to guide you. You are no longer a caged animal, my child. Broly, was it? Broly nodded. Well, Broly, I think we can make this work. After all, you are going to have to work very hard to impress Lord Beerus.
Lord Beerus?
Repeated Broly. He then nodded.
Okay, I'll do my best.
The kid then caught himself by surprise. That response? That was so sudden. How could he dismiss his father's abandonment like that? He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but maybe it was the environment giving him some sense of comfort. Maybe this angel's niceness and destruction of that horrible collar gave him hope that things would be okay, that he would be able to grow up relatively normally, with stability. Whatever the reason, this was definitely better than Vampa. Now already, I hear you all out there lamenting this choice, that Whis would never do such a thing as take away Broly from Paragus. You see, Whis isn't your average mortal with a traditional set of morals and values. Yes, they want to see order and harmony within their realm, but the angels will do anything and go to any lengths in which to achieve that. And if that means stripping a father away from his boy after he had welched on their initial deal, then so be it. Smiter's gonna get smoked. And besides, I can't wait to meet Ian Sinclair again and we can geek out about Whis and discuss why this is totally plausible. And would Whis feel bad about it? Well, Whis isn't one for conventional emotion. Especially at this point in the story, before Goku showed up to muddy the waters and change their way of thinking at least a little bit. So for now, Broly will never know about what happened to his father. Not the truth, that is. Broly was told that Paragus has straight up abandoned him and that Whis had no choice but to take him in after having been discarded by his own papa. Broly was initially upset about this, I mean, you would be. but the serene atmosphere of this new home did wonders for his overall state of mind, and thusly proved to be just the ticket in which to eventually get over this betrayal. If Broly hated what his father had done, at least what he was told, why would he ever go look for him? And, as Whis pointed out to himself, Paragus isn't exactly going to be looking for Broly since he can't remember who Broly is. Whis nodded to himself that this was the perfect plan. But with Beerus still asleep and not likely to wake up for a while, Whis was the primary caretaker for this youngling. Broly did inquire as to the whereabouts of Beerus, and Whis chose to be honest since it was clear that Paragus had been very lackluster when it came to being open with his former son. And hey, Whis, honesty. You see, Lord Beerus is rather unorthodox destroyer. A typical example would be very busy, ensuring the stability and the balance of our universe across it. Lord Beerus is not like those examples. Instead, he sleeps in for long periods of time, usually centuries, until he wakes up and goes about making up for lost time, making mistakes along the way, and bizarre excuses for destroying planets, which had usually corrected their previous errors in the interim. Oh dear. Broly looked rather disappointed and concerned at this.
Centuries? But I might be dead by the time he wakes up. Well, what's the point of me being here?
Think not that sentiment, Broly. Lord Beerus shall awaken during your lifetime. There is an important reminder left for him to do so. You shall meet him one day. The training that Whis and Broly undertook was pretty much more of the same that Broly had witnessed whilst the Angel was testing him back on Vampa. Only this time, it had more to it, with further feedback from Whis, and the gains were much quicker. Broly asked that if he would eventually become so strong that Whis would actually have to fight back, fight seriously, go on the offense. Instead of doing his usual stuff of just dodging the Saiyan's attacks or poking him with a staff, Whis though looked a little apprehensive. Yes, well the truthful answer is, not likely. And if by some fluke you did cause me to fight seriously, well, the cosmos might have something to say about that. Whis looked up to the sky with a rather serious expression, like he didn't want that to happen. Broly looked up too, but despite Whis looking nervous at this prospect, Broly was still determined to make Whis fight with everything that he got, eventually. Even if it took him all his life to achieve it, he will do it, dang it! Now when it came to his education, Whis felt that the best type of training in that particular field was to take Broly along sometimes with him on his usual duties of overseeing the universe and taking some notes for Beerus once he would eventually wake up and make up for lost time. On these expeditions, Broly got to see many things and experience many different cultures. He felt very learned after all of that. But then one day, a brainwave hit Broly.
Hey, Mr. Whis?
Said the Saiyan. Whis looked down in readiness for the enquiry, whilst they were having a quick bite to eat on one merchant planet that Whis liked the look of.
Paragus told me about Lord Frieza, that he was an evil monster, the strongest being in the galaxy.
Whis noted the fact that Broly had grown so accustomed to his lot in life that he had willingly chosen not to refer to Paragus as his father anymore, without prompting. Good, the Angel thought. Made things a little easier.
How strong is Frieza, compared to you?
Whis took a sip of his drink and let out a mild chuckle. My boy, he is but a drink of tea in this cup I am drinking. He showed the aforementioned speck of leaf to Broly in the cup. You see, he is but something that could get stuck in my teeth. Nothing of consequence. Broly was astounded.
Then, what does that make me?
Whis casually tucked into his food, not taking into account the fact that he was eating with his mouth open whilst describing this. Oh, you could probably take him down if you wanted by now. Your training is unlike anything mortals have acquired by themselves. Broly was just floored. Really? He could take down Frieza right now? Broly looked determined.
Well, then why don't I do that? I can take him down, like you said. Then the galaxy will be free of his tyranny. What do you say, Mr. Whis?
Whis put down his cutlery and gave Broly a stern look after gulping down his food. No. Broly was confused.
But aren't angels supposed to be good?
Whis sighed. It's complicated, Broly. Lord Beerus and I's job is to ensure that everything goes by as smoothly as possible. Granted, I would love it if Lord Beerus were a little more stable in his actions and more consistent with his sleep schedule, but we managed to get by. Frieza's place within this universe is locked, and only mortal means can topple him from his perch. Broly stood up, still looking focused.
I'm mortal! I can do it!
Whis shook his head. Not in the traditional sense. You are marked for greater things, Broly. Things from on high. Frieza already is nothing to you. Think not of him and your Saiyan ties. They matter not. Broly wanted to rail against this, but what we said made sense. If Broly was already stronger than Frieza at this state, just imagine what he would be like in a few years' time, when he was all grown up. Such a shame that his dad had dumped him like that. He didn't know what he would have been missing. He probably would have been proud, had he not turned out to be a jerk. Broly sat back down and we smiled. I appreciate you having a good head on your shoulders, but if you are to fully excel at your studies, you need to learn how to attain perfect balance. No one soul rules alone, no matter how strong they are. There are always other pieces of the puzzle that could spell discord if not put in the right place, or worse, are absent. Broly processed this impromptu lesson and parable and slowly went back to his food, doing his best to take in what Whis had just said. This relationship and dynamic continues for quite some time, until one day, when we sensed something go down in the mortal realm. On the divine grapevine, word had gotten around that Frieza had been slain, on top of having just been defeated. Naturally, this caught Whis' attention, and he chose to investigate using his staff. Whilst perusing his orb on a stick, Broly, now all grown up, asked Whis what the matter was. It was very rare for Whis to be this deep in thought. With no food in sight, Whis chose to indulge Broly's curiosity. At least a little bit. You see, Broly, remember that Lord Frieza fellow? Broly nodded. You remember how I said that mortal matters would determine his ultimate fate? Broly nodded again. Well, that happened. Frieza is dead. I have heard the news from my contacts at the Otherworld check-in station. He's just been processed. Broly was surprised, to say the least. Really? Who did it? Who killed him? Whis was quite bemused himself, but explained. Well, the person who finally offed him was someone not where they should be. Naughty, naughty. We'll have to get Cranoa on that one. But the person who initially defeated him, toppled him off his perch, was a Saiyan, just like you. Broly was fascinated. More Saiyans survived Planet Vegeta's destruction? Indeed. This one transformed into the supposed Super Saiyan of legend, and yet his power is nothing in comparison to yours. Broly looked to his hands. He then saw the image of Goku on the orb, with golden hair. His hair couldn't do that. Whis then continued. I completely forgot Saiyans could do that. It's been thousands of years since the last one did that. I think this could be of good use to you, Broly. What say you that we try and figure out how to do it ourselves? Should make things a little more fun, right? He smiled his angelic smile as Broly looked very excited. This was a different kind of training, and this Saiyan could get so strong as to best Frieza. Just imagine the gains that he himself could get when perfected, and he could make his hair gold too. And with Whis' aid, Broly indeed just did that. Because remember, Whis is very smart. It goes without saying that the Super Saiyan transformation was much more effective than the Ikari powers that Whis had unearthed, naturally discovered whilst training Broly in the years that he had been on this world, thusly proving Whis' point that Broly was worth having around. And with Whis' assistance, this gain in power was much more straightforward than it had been with Goku and the other mortals that would dare get close to it. The sight of Super Saiyan Broly was breathtaking, not to mention the power jump. Whis asked Broly to fight him with everything that he had, in Super Saiyan, to which Broly obliged. Whis took it all in. This increase in every single aspect of Broly's capabilities was incredible. Now that his mind had been jogged with the rediscovery of the Super Saiyan power, this could lead to the Super Saiyan God being right around the corner. Might it be an idea to wake Beerus up earlier than he had planned and present Broly to him? Not yet, Whis thought. He felt that this power had more to give. He needed to refine it before daring to wake his master up. He knew how cranky the cat would be if he'd been woken up for something rather inferior. Whis had to make sure. For now though, Whis also kept watch of Goku's development too. Whilst Goku's power was minuscule compared to he and Broly, the fact that a Saiyan was able to gain that strength so quickly, without divine intervention, was something to take note of. Broly was also thinking about Goku. Could this be something that Whis talked about in action? Something that was causing the balance of the universe to skew? Shift? Could this Goku turn out to be worse than Frieza, he thought? Broly knew nothing, of course, as to the context of Goku's actions. That he was acting for the betterment of mortal kind. All that Broly knew about him was the fact that he was a Super Saiyan and had killed Frieza. He could have done it for any reason. That was all he knew. For all that Broly had comprehended, Goku could have done it out of bravado, or, like the younger Broly thought, to see if he could. Broly wasn't sure about this guy. He felt like he needed to stop this Goku. That was his gut reaction. But Whis would never go along with this. Right now, Goku was of interest to him. Wait, was this jealousy in action as well? Was Broly getting jealous of Goku for stealing Whis' attention like that? Oh dear, Whis. This is the part about mortal life I don't think you quite get. Jealousy. Despite trying to understand emotion as part of gaining Super Saiyan, Whis had a very superficial view of it. This feeling carried on for a long time still. Broly had been tempted to go and find this Goku himself, properly suss him out for his master. But Whis would never agree to that. Besides, how would Broly get to Goku? He couldn't fly there. Beerus' world was far away from everything. Broly would die of old age before he even got to the next waypoint. However, he was about to get some good news. Whis felt like the time was ready to wake Beerus. All right, Broly. Sit down here and I shall wake Lord Beerus. Don't be startled if you find objects being hurled your way. Beerus is rather crotchety when awoken. Broly sat down on the table and did what he was told. A few minutes later, and after many, many loud noises, Broly could hear utterances and expletives from a different voice. Was that Lord Beerus? Broly steeled himself up for the arrival of an imposing destroyer, something that he'd been told for decades that was frightful. But instead, he saw a cat in pajamas and looking very haggard to boot. However, when their eyes met, Beerus' face contorted to a rather satisfied smirk.
So then, you must be my supposed Super Saiyan God.
Young Broly here has expertly handled my training up to this point, and he might indeed prove worthy of your review, Lord Beerus.
Review, eh?
Said the cat whilst sitting down at the table and pouring himself some cereal and eating some toast. Broly was still bemused. This was the god of destruction? And he was eating food like a regular mortal would? Beerus spotted him eyeing him up.
Something bothering you, Saiyan?
Broly looked away frantically and Beerus laughed to himself, loving the feeling of superiority and power over him right now.
It's always fun when you're still mysterious to them,
he said to himself.
Wait, Master Whis, the Super Saiyan God thing. Remind me.
Whis then clarified the situation and said that Beerus' friend the Oracle Fish predicted the arrival of a powerful Saiyan that could challenge Beerus to a fair fight, something that the deity had never had happen to him before.
I am quite eager for this to be true. Whis tells me that you are prepared for a brawl, yes?
Broly nodded meekly and the fight was set for later, right after Beerus had finished his toast and his coffee had cooled off a little. An hour later, outside, Beerus and Broly faced off one another. Whis gave Broly some last-minute advice and then went to tell his master not to be too rough with Broly right away. You don't want to blow him away on the first encounter, Lord Beerus. I've put in a lot of work in this one. And remember the last time a candidate underwent your appraisal? Beerus just dismissed it.
If it happens, Whis. It's not my fault they weren't up to the challenge.
Beerus cracked his knuckles and glowered at Broly.
Are you ready, Super Saiyan God? Show me what you've got.
Broly powered up to Super Saiyan. His Super Saiyan. Now, does this differ from Goku's version? Well, yes, it is vastly superior to Goku's base Super Saiyan, but it was still not enough to stop Beerus. Beerus was still running rings around him though, but the cat had to admit that this was a pleasant surprise. He wasn't expecting this.
Not bad, Saiyan. You're actually making me try a little. I'm not bored yet, so that counts for something.
The fight continued, but despite Broly's power, Beerus was still dominating proceedings, and starting to get a little bit bored. But Broly kept trying, keen to impress. Whis was watching on, willing Broly to push harder. But it was no good. Broly did power up like he does in the movie, out of frustration, but he couldn't win outright. In the end, Beerus slammed Broly's head into the dirt and called time on the encounter.
Adequate, but a Super Saiyan God, you are not. Whis, are there any other Saiyans knocking around this universe still? Or did that imp Frieza wipe out all of them? I wouldn't be surprised if the latter were true.
The cat walked off to Whis and left Broly there, reeling from the defeat, covered in dirt, and seemingly being hard passed by Beerus. That was it? After all these years of training and anticipation, he was basically cast aside like that and got a thanks but no thanks effectively? Broly was seething. He got up and shouted to Beerus.
Hey! I'm not done yet!
Beerus turned around.
Oh? You're not done, you say? Well, I say you are, so deal with it.
He turned back to Whis, who was talking to him about something. Broly did not like being ignored. After having all this time alone with Whis, he felt special. But now, he feared that he would no longer be the center of attention. He didn't pay attention to what Beerus and Whis were actually talking about right that second, but he had to try one last time to prove himself worthy of the Destroyer's attention. He screamed and powered up with every last ounce of energy he had left, making the ground shake underneath him. He was angry, exasperated, and starting to really lose his cool. He surged forward, and he didn't care whether this was improper conduct or not. He had to do something, and he landed a punch on Beerus' face, which sent him flying into a nearby statue of himself, disintegrating it in an instant. Whis was shocked. Oh my! Where was that earlier, Broly? But I hope that you're ready for a... Oh, Beerus had just swept by him and began a flurry of blows against the Saiyan, and the fight had gotten even tougher. Beerus was having to try harder now, but Broly just kept going and going. He was like a machine now, like he were possessed. It had become clear that Beerus' rejection had gotten under his skin. Broly may be a good egg, but right now he's acting like a spoiled little brat. And I can't really blame him, Whis has been sort of pampering him for several decades. But the cat was willing to stoke this anger even more to get what he wanted.
Oh? What's the matter, Pipsqueak? Getting tired? It doesn't matter what tricks you may pull, you'll never win against me.
Broly roared again and broke through the Super Saiyan 2 barrier like it were nothing. The taps were let open, even more now, and Beerus was having to defend a couple of times with gusto. Whis, though, was starting to get a little concerned. It had been a very long time since he had to use his powers to revert any damage to this planet caused by battles and combat training. He used his staff to call time on the fight, and this halted the matter. Beerus was getting livid.
Whis! How dare you interrupt my test! I was beginning to have fun with this one!
But Broly was still going, though. Beerus got slammed in the back and landed right at the feet of the Angel.
Does that thing know how to quit?
Mumbled Beerus with dirt in his mouth. Whis then had to intervene and knock Broly out for the moment. Let him cool off for a little. Admittedly, though, he was quite pleased to see that power of his evolve in the heat of battle. He recalled from Paragus' memories, when he read his mind, that the boy tended to improve drastically when under serious pressure. He even saw it a couple of times in the flesh. And fighting Beerus here was a prime example of said catalyst. A couple of hours later, Broly woke up and found himself in bed. He could barely recall his previous battle with Beerus, but knew that he had pushed through a barrier of power that he had not really gotten through yet, and had surprised Beerus in some way. Had he done enough to win over his attention and become his apprentice? Well, not quite. Broly would find this out the hard way, as he made his way to the dining room, and Beerus was being told of another Saiyan that could be of interest. Broly gasped. No, not that one. Not that Goku. Whis indeed explained how Goku had been able to get so strong without their intervention, and Beerus was intrigued enough to go and check him out.
Oh, it seems that Vegeta is in the area as well. I'm keen to torment him a little bit while we're there.
Vegeta? That had been a name he hadn't heard in a long time. Again, remembering Paragus' stories. Granted, Broly didn't view Paragus affectionately anymore as his father, but he could still recollect the original anecdotes. Broly then walked into the room and volunteered to go with them and help them with their test. Be some sort of yardstick. Beerus was annoyed that he had been eavesdropping, but Whis diffused the situation, thinking it were a good idea. Perhaps Broly's presence might be good in sizing up this Goku. If Broly is better than him, then he is of no use to you, and you may do as you please. Beerus scratched his chin in thought.
True. Alright, you may come with us, Broly, but don't try anything funny. It's my time to shine.
Broly promised. All he wanted to do was to prove to Beerus he was the worthy Saiyan. When the trio arrived on King Kai's planet, Goku was utterly flabbergasted. Not only had he been introduced to Lord Beerus, but now he had met another Saiyan that he had no idea existed up to now, and his energy. Whew! That was immense. Goku was excited to fight this Broly, but Broly was not. Keen to shut him up. You see, this is where Whis' ignorance of mortal emotions come into play again. Broly's jealousy was driving him right now. He didn't want to be cast out by Whis and Beerus after putting in so much effort for so much time. All his life, practically. He had been preparing himself for becoming Beerus' successor. And now in comes this upstart who may spoil everything for him. And he hadn't even been trying. No dice. In base form for now, Broly and Goku fought, and it was no contest. Broly was wiping the floor with Goku, but the latter wasn't worried. He just kept cycling through the Super Saiyan transformations like he often does, and he did with Beerus in the original. But Broly had an answer to all of these counter-maneuvers, but Goku had no answer back. Not even Super Saiyan 3 was effective against Broly's power, and he was now starting to get a little ruthless in his fighting, the big one. Goku was trying to call for time now, but Broly was getting angry and full of blind rage and starting to get a little bit overzealous.
Know your place, Goku! Do not get in my way! That's enough, Broly. You made your point. Whis, this was a bust. Compared to our one, this monkey is but a whelp. I'm bored. Let's go to his homeworld and give the prince a fright, shall we?
Broly gave Goku a nasty glare, as if to say, that will teach you. Goku was left in tatters. King Kai had to frantically get his first aid kit out and try and stop Goku from dying in the other world. Speaking of Earth, the Heavenly Trio arrived. But without Goku's warning, since he was now in much worse shape than in the original, the presence of these three was mostly lost on the Dragon team. Except Vegeta, of course. He was horrified to see Beerus, but curious to see a Saiyan with them. So he was sort of ambivalent. He wanted to ask the Saiyan his name, but Broly walked up to him and simply said, "This is for Paragus."
What?
Broly whacked Vegeta over the head and out cold, and down a few floors of the boat that they were on. The prince having little warning about that move too. Whis was surprised. My! I thought you were unable to forgive your father. Why would you fight for his sake? Broly shook his head. I haven't. But he always said that if he were to see King Vegeta or his son again, he'd give them hell. Well, that was it. Ah, blinked Beerus. Mortals were such vengeful creatures. Yeah, you're one to talk, Beerus. Now clear that there were no worthy alternate Saiyans to become a Super Saiyan God, Broly relaxed a little, whilst his masters were busy eating the Earth food. And then getting into a flap about pudding because of course they do. When Boo and Beerus got into a stink about said dessert, things started to get very much out of hand. Broly didn't get involved though, since he'd done everything he needed to do. That wasn't his fight to begin with. He wouldn't want to upset Beerus or overstep the mark since he was so tantalizingly close to getting what he wanted. He had everything in place.
That is until Goku shows up!
Broly was furious. He had been so close to getting Whis' full attention forever, but now Goku was back for more. But Beerus was also getting a little annoyed.
You again? Hadn't you figured out that your services were no longer required, Saiyan? You are a feeble example of one. What makes you think you can do better now? Broly, remind him of his failure.
Broly was about to step forward, But Goku offered for more information about that Super Saiyan God thing that he'd been talking about, Beerus. This got the cat's attention. This is where Shenron comes in and offers his information with that wish thing. All it involved were 6 righteous Saiyans to gather in a circle and imbue one of them with the power of the Super Saiyan God. Easy, thought Goku. Now, how do you define righteous? Is it based off of a good heart? Is it based off of pure conviction and belief that you are the Super Saiyan God? It is open for debate, but here, I feel that this could be led by Goku by being a bit boneheaded. Goku took the ritual at face value, not looking into this all that deeply. You just stand around in a circle and wait. Since Broly had been told by Whis he was important, and the one that Beerus would view as his successor supposedly, Broly had the unshakable belief that he was the Super Saiyan God, and he would do whatever it took to achieve it, whereas Goku, he was kind of on the fence and hoped for the best of things, and not to mention his disinclination for getting power just because. He likes to earn it. He didn't like this power, by the way, in the original. And it all led to Broly ascending and getting the power, all because Goku didn't take it seriously. Broly had simply willed it more. The Super Saiyan Lord works in mysterious ways. The power flowed through Broly, and his hair had gone from black to red. His appearance had become leaner, and his eyes softened. He had become the thing Goku was in the original. Why Masako? Is he of pure heart here? Well, I would say so. Despite being overshadowed with jealousy right now, Broly isn't a bad person or evil. He's far less evil and malicious than Vegeta, and he could do it. He was raised by an angel too, taught how to govern and be fair with decisions. At worst, Broly is neutral, but evil? No. Goku simply didn't think his plan through. And now, he was in for a world of pain. But Broly wasn't interested in Goku right now.
Lord Beerus, may we fight again? You what? Didn't you want to blow this speck of a monkey away?
No, he is of nothing to me now. I wish to fight you as the true Super Saiyan God.
Beerus laughed. Well, if this form is more potent than the last one, why not? At least here the collateral damage matters not to me.
The Dragon team didn't like the sound of that, nor the fact that Earth was now being used as a heavenly battleground. The stage was set for Super Saiyan God Broly versus Beerus, round 2. Goku was left dumbstruck. He had been hoodwinked right there and then, simply because he hadn't taken this whole thing seriously. The Dragon team were left baffled by this as well, chastising Goku for failing at such a simple task. This was being handed to him on a plate. Can you guess which one was the loudest about this? Yep.
Kakarot! You had this power in the palm of your hand, and you let it slip through! What were you thinking?
Goku tried to justify his actions by saying that he's not a fan of handouts when it comes to power. He would instead want to earn said power through training or having transformations like Super Saiyan. This bestowing of God Ki to him didn't sit right.
Then who else would have been worthy, huh?
Growled Vegeta. Goku said that maybe Gohan could have been a good fit. You know, he was pure heart and strong. But then Gohan looked away despite being kind of flattered.
I really wouldn't know how to use it. And besides, we're in a really tight spot right now. We gotta stop our home from being laid to waste.
That was very true, thought Goku. But he also kind of wanted to see this fight go down. Up in the air, Broly was looking at Beerus with hungry eyes, the cat returning the gaze with an equally curious expression.
Ah yes, I can see it now, Saiyan. The pride that you speak of so frequently is welling up within you. Whis has taught you well in handling God Ki, clearly. But that doesn't guarantee that you're worthy of becoming my successor. Maybe I don't want one. Can you convince me otherwise?
Broly nodded and got into position. He also had an axe to grind with the cat as well, after being forsaken not that long ago, not really given much of a chance to show what he could do. Broly, unlike Goku in the original movie, had the drive to win, rather than simply surviving. Whis was approached by Bulma, asking if they could, for goodness sake, take their fight somewhere else, please. Yeah, since Earth had done nothing wrong to warrant potential annihilation. Whis shrugged. Your food is rather delectable, but I cannot make any promises as of now. Both of them are rather stubborn individuals. So is that a yes or a no? It's, I'll wait and see. Whis then turned back to the fight, leaving Bulma spitting feathers at the non-answer. The fight began, and Beerus started to see the notable difference in approach that Broly had acquired since gaining this interesting power. Their last encounter, Broly here was driven in a manner that he had never experienced or shown before. He felt that he had earned this power, and this meant that he was going to go all out against Beerus to get it through that thick head of his, that he was the one who deserved his crown ultimately. He would govern well as a destroyer. He would play fair with the Supreme Kai, as a destroyer should. He would do everything as a destroyer that Whis had taught him in terms of being a just and worthy one, so long as people knew that he was in charge. Beerus was getting into this fight too, and despite Broly not being stronger than him at the moment, he could feel that the Saiyan was really showcasing their race's desire for battle and to punch above their weight. It was quite entertaining, he really liked this. Would he continue to like this though? He started to think a bit. A regular Saiyan, that could never be considered worthy of being a destroyer ultimately, but one that had been shaped and moulded by an angel for decades? That was a whole other kettle of fish entirely.
Perhaps I was too quick to judge you, Broly. Can you keep this up?
Broly leapt back and resumed his stance.
Yes, Lord Beerus. I could do this all day. Good. Then let's get serious.
The fight began to indeed get more serious, with Bulma telling the pilot of the cruise liner to get as far away from the fight as possible, sensing that things could get really messy soon. Not to mention expensive. As for the rest of the Dragon team, they were anxiously waiting to see how this fight was going to pan out. Who would they have to root for? What could they do to fix this perhaps? Is there any way at all to get them to take their fracas somewhere else? Piccolo was concentrating very intently, considering that thanks to Kami's influence, he had a sensitivity to God Ki, albeit not in the typical conventional Ki sensing stuff that we're all familiar with. He just knew that it existed. He could just about tell that Broly's aura was all over the place.
It's almost as if he's desperately trying to impress Lord Beerus.
Impress him,
said Goku.
Impress him how?
Kakarot, isn't it obvious? There's a master-student dynamic going on. And I remember this one. Broly.
You do? Said Piccolo.
Yes. He was cast out by my father for being too powerful. I guess he lived, and is now a loose cannon. Another mistake of my father's then.
Vegeta was lamenting all of this, especially since there was nothing he could do in the here and now to stop it. Not to mention, he was also very averse of trying his luck with Beerus around. If he interrupted, he doubted that he would live to tell the tale. Now, like in the original, the battle begins to get so heated that each connecting punch is starting to cause massive ripples within the universe and distorting the very fabric of the cosmos and space-time. Kibito Kai and Elder Kai are getting very nervous, them watching the fight between Broly and Beerus right over Earth via their viewing globe. They communicate with Goku, trying to get him to stop the fight on his end, to which the Saiyan is unable to do anything.
I ain't involved for once, pal. There seems to be beef between them. Maybe call one of them instead?
Kibito Kai was very apprehensive in telepathically contacting Beerus, his lifelink partner, since the latter hated his guts. However, the fate of the universe was at stake here. It depended on his action. But all he got back was expletives that are far too profane for me to convey here, but needless to say, they were pretty colourful. But what this led to was just enough of a distraction for Broly to land a direct punch on Beerus' face. This sent the cat somersaulting for miles across space, the fight having headed up into the atmosphere, by the way, and Beerus barking at Kibito Kai to never call him again, which meant that, naturally, the Kai had to wade in and inform Whis of the dilemma.
Oh dear, that sounds unfortunate. But I'm unable to stop Beerus, Kai. This is the matter between him and Broly. You should take it up with them.
He then told Whis he'd actually tried to do so just now. But then Kibito Kai halted contact with the angel and called Broly.
Broly, pupil of Beerus, can you hear me?
Broly was confused but replied,
Good. I am the Supreme Kai of Universe 7. Nice to meet you finally. Whis has told me a lot about you. I've contacted you in order to ask you to stop your fight with Beerus.
Stop? Why?
Your attacks are getting far too intense for the mortal realm to withstand. It's fine when you're on Beerus' planet, it can take it. But here, on the universal planes, It's creating devastating effects that could tear the universe apart. You're destined to be its successor, yes?
Yes.
Well, if this fight continues, then there won't be a universe for you to help maintain. You are meant to destroy, yes, but you're not meant to destroy everything.
Broly's eyes widened. It dawned on him. No,
he didn't want that. He may have been desperate for recognition, but he still wished to be a good destroyer at the end of this all.
Was Beerus really that uncaring to put this realm in jeopardy just for the sake of a fight, he thought?
Thank you, Supreme Kai. I shall be careful. Thank you, Broly. At least you see sense.
Broly began to evade Beerus's attacks rather than striking back, and the cat was left confused as to why he had this sudden change in pace.
You're running away from my attacks, child. I thought you longed to beat me up. What kind of a joke is this?
Broly ignored the cat's goading. He knew the truth now. Beerus, he was a hack. He was fully prepared to rip the universe asunder for the sake of his own personal enjoyment, to prove a point of how big his appendage was. He had to end this his way. With that, Broly dug deep. He let out something raw. Something which was an almighty roar. Something that came from the very pit of his soul. This cry was a cry for the universe. A plea for Beerus to stop, not with feeble words, but with angry shouts from the Saiyan beast within him. The sonic waves caught Beerus by surprise. Then the energy barrages whipped him around like a plastic bag in the wind. He was being pummeled left, right, and center, blow after blow, his ears ringing and shuddering with the immense force that was tormenting it. He felt like he was about to feel his eardrums rupture. He tried to concentrate Beerus, to send out an atomic-like sampling of a Kai energy to cancel this out, or maybe cancel Broly. But he was finding it incredibly difficult to focus enough to even just try and produce one. With every passing second, he felt his mind getting ever cloudier. This kind of attack wasn't like anything he had felt before. Destruction was being challenged by frustration. Whis could see this too, and was amazed with this twist.
Well, I'll be. Saiyan psychology really is fascinating.
Kibito Kai wasn't really sure whether this was better or worse than what they were just experiencing. Sonic punches and sonic screams, but hey, at least this technique, or whatever this was stopping Beerus from doing anything harmful. Well, speaking of Beerus, he was now in agony. He was having the godliest of migraines, and in turn it was causing him to slowly go mad. He yearned for the shrieking to stop, but Broly was letting out all of his anger, his resentment, his jealousy that he had been penting up since discovering Goku and unleashing it upon his master. If it could save the universe, it was worth it. Be damned the consequences. Just then, Whis stepped in, wearing comedy earplugs, waving for Broly to stop. Broly did so, and Whis smiled back at him.
That will do, Broly. Not bad. If anything, you will make a very useful alarm clock for Lord Beerus.
He chuckled, whilst Broly was trying to catch his breath, him having nearly passed out at having expended so much air. As for Beerus, he was practically broken right now. He was rocking back and forth in the middle of space, his eyes wide with madness, and simply relieved that the screaming had just for God's sake stopped. He hadn't expected that. The biggest tantrum in the universe. Normally, he would have then gone on to have destroyed Broly for this act of insubordination. But right now, all he wanted to do was crawl under his covers, go back to bed and cry.
Whis!
He shouted, his attendant coming over.
Take me home. I'm done.
Very well, my lord. Coming, Broly?
Beerus shook and looked away as Broly approached. Yes, I just need to say something to Goku first.
All right, but don't be too long.
Broly headed back to Earth, who had been through the ringers thanks to his shouting, but since it wasn't in the direct vicinity of his shout, the shriek, it remained mostly intact. Goku and Broly looked at each other. But Broly had no ill will left toward Goku. Not only had he become the Super Saiyan God, the letting out of his anger in that way had lifted a huge weight from his mind, meaning that his previous little jealous spat with the Saiyan now meant nothing to him. He was over it. I apologize, Goku, for being so reckless. This encounter has taught me many things. Things that I hadn't expected to learn. Goku nodded. Does this mean that you can be our friend, Broly? It's complicated, but
You need no longer fear me. I'm only doing what I'm being taught to do, and that is to help bring balance to this universe. I'm sure we'll meet again, though. Goku smiled slightly. With that, Broly headed back to Whis, and the three of them set off for home. When they got back, Beerus immediately headed for bed. He barely looked at Broly, and when he did, it was with a mixture of fear, loathing, and Las Vegas. Sorry, I meant exhaustion. He had never in all his life met someone like Broly, but right now, he didn't care. He just wanted to get away from him and sleep off this hysteria. Whis could tell that the cat was deeply troubled, and asked Broly why he had acted the way he did. Lord Whis, I realized something. That Beerus' ways of going about things, his duties, is not right.
Well, I could have told you that, Broly, but you are correct. Lord Beerus does have a way of doing things which are not exactly in our rulebook.
Indeed. I do not wish to be like that. I promised that when I succeed him, I will be a better destroyer.
Whis had an ambivalent look about him right now. Granted, he was pleased to see that his apprentice was demonstrating formidable potential and a good noble mind. But then at the same time, it also angered Beerus in a way that he had never seen before. Or was it anger? Was it maybe trauma? A traumatized destroyer? Is that a good thing to have, though? Had Broly unleashed a major can of worms that could spell even further doom for Universe 7? Or might this be an opportunity? With Beerus now bedridden, Whis had to figure things out. Something was very wrong with the likes of the cat. Normally, he wouldn't have been affected by things like this. However, Broly's frustration had almost drowned his feline friend. Was that normal? It was very hard to say. Nothing like this, as far as he could recall, had come about. Beerus was in no mood to talk about it. Besides, he was usually better after a nap, but this nap was proving to be quite a long one. In fact, when Whis went in to check on Beerus, he was wearing his deep sleep pajamas. This meaning that he was in this for the long haul. Oh dear, this wasn't good. At the first sign of trouble, Beerus had chosen to ignore Broly and sleep off whatever troubles he had. Would he ever wake up? Or would he pretend to be asleep until Broly died of old age, which for Saiyans was not all that long, perhaps half a century at best? For the cat, oh, he could snooze for ice ages, so 50 years, that was nothing.
Whis, what troubles Lord Beerus?
Said a calm Broly, whose status had been assured. He was far less tempestuous than he had. Letting out all his frustration was much better for his psyche, since discovering Goku's very existence.
You see, Lord Beerus has never been challenged before. Of course, being a god of destruction, you are very unlikely to come across forces that could topple you from your pedestal. But when you do, it leaves a mark. I believe that Shin contacted you, yes? The Supreme Kai of our universe? What did he say? Did he provide some sort of insight for you? Yes. He told me that had Beerus and I continued our fight in the way that we were, reality would have been torn apart. I don't want that. No matter the challenge that Lord Beerus provided me, I would rather die than see innocent lives be ripped to shreds.
Would you now? Tell you what, Broly, I think we're due for a test. Wait here one moment. I need to ask my father for something. After a few hours, Whis returned with a smile upon his face and a little jar. Good news, Broly. We're going to go on a little trip.
To where?
Asked the Saiyan. This will be your test. To see if what you told me just now was honest. Broly thought about what he had said and prepared himself for whatever challenge that his master had in store for him. And when they arrived at said destination, they gazed upon a planet. This will be your test. They looked at the planet.
What does this planet have to do with me? I've never seen it before.
This world has been in Beerus' inbox for quite some time. It is a world where its people have squandered most of its natural resources in select spots across its surface. Its useful lifespan is dwindling, yet its civilization is on the cusp of potentially solving their own problems.
Are you asking me to choose whether it should be destroyed or not? If so easy, I would simply...
I am not done. There is fierce resistance towards this venture from the populace, and instead, they wish to pool their materials and assets into conquering this system. This is a turning point for this world's fate.
Either leave things as they are and trust that its inhabitants can turn things around, or prevent its potential from being wasted for bloodshed on other realms. Which fate do you believe will happen? I would be very interested to know, given your mortality. Mortality? But I am more than that, said Broly, albeit very pompously. Not so. Until you don the gowns of a destroyer, Broly, the constraints of your lifespan will define you. Now tell me, what would you do? Broly thought about this for a second. This could be the hardest decision he'd ever have to make. But then he realized something. Whis, I don't have the means to use or possess Hakai energy. How can I make this decision without the right tools? That's why I went to the Grand Priest earlier, to provide you with said tools. He opened the jar and manipulated a ball of purple and black sparking energy. Broly gulped at it. This was pure Hakai energy. He had never seen it in the flesh before. It was amazing. So, what will you do? Broly did a little. Whis getting a little impatient, wanting to know his choice. I wish to leave this planet be. Whis put the Hakai energy away. Oh? Why is that? It has potential, albeit very fleeting. To eliminate it now, though, would be wrong. After all, you saw the potential in me when you rescued me. Whis looked away. Yes, rescued. Granted, it could lead to something dire, but we are not here to take side in those matters. Our job concerns worlds, and if those mortals can restore this planet to its heyday, then allow them a chance. Only once that potential is extinguished can we even think to destroy it, and even then, it's not a clear-cut decision. Whis smiled. An excellent answer, Broly. I am glad to see that your emotions have stabilized after your little protest. Whis was very relieved that Broly had not chosen to use his Hakai energy. Granted, from his father, but still, it was good to keep it back in the box. We do not get involved in mortal affairs, or at least, we're not supposed to. Lord Beerus has seemed to have forgotten that notion, as of late. He is hoping that your words have gotten through to him. And with that, the two departed from that corner of space and headed for home. By the way, if you were curious, that planet did indeed turn itself around and regained its usefulness in Universe 7, as well as restoring peace on it, its people coming good. Had Beerus been around to make the call, things might have ended differently. He probably would have just taken the easy way out. Years passed, and the cat had still not woken up. Now, I bet you're asking as to the existence of the Tournament of Power, or more to the point, the Universe 6 arc. Well, about that. Since Beerus had been asleep, when Champa came to call like he did, he was rebuffed by Whis and told to come back later. He also wasn't intrigued by the fact there was no Goku or Vegeta training on Beerus' planet. Therefore, no sibling rivalry forming at that particular juncture. No Tournament of Power either, since Zeno never got to meet Goku and endear himself to them, and propose said contest. However, there was a matter of Goku Black. Broly kept his word, and chose to meet with Goku at least one more time, and the time he had chosen just so happened to be the same time when future Trunks rocked up at Capsule Corp, and laid out the situation back in his timeline. Broly, who had never known the extent of the time travel malarkey, was aghast that it existed, and demanded to know what had happened and how he was back here. Apparently, back in the future in a different timeline and reality, there was a being called Black, looking like Goku, who would cause trouble in Trunks' reality. This would not do, and things would get even more subjective for Broly when Black slipped in through time itself, in a manner which Broly had been educated in a long time ago in a casual lesson with Whis. Temporal shifts via time rings. Goku and Broly had been training before then, Goku showing off Super Saiyan 3 against Super Saiyan God, which was surprisingly close, Broly noted, but Goku Black arrived to spoil the fun and intrigue. Whis, who had tagged along for the food because Beerus was still asleep, reminded Broly that he was not supposed to take sides in these matters, like he had mentioned in his test. But when the nature of his arrival was apparent, Whis knew immediately that this was no ordinary matter. They would have to take some kind of initiative. Mortals travelling like that? Very irregular. There had to be Kais involved. Goku wanted to fight this interloper, this imposter of his, but the destroyer in training stepped forward instead, asserting himself. This matter concerns you not, Goku.
Allow me to fix this. The fight between Black and Broly was comically short. Instead of the original one where Goku was merely toying with Black, he could have easily defeated him had he actually given the gumption and actually took it seriously. Broly here went in hard in his Super Saiyan God form. Black had nothing to answer with, not even being able to go Super Saiyan. Granted, he was stronger than his base form would have led on, but he could not respond to Broly's attacks at all. His timeline, Trunks' timeline, had no Broly in this guise, and so Broly wiped Goku Black away with little difficulty, doing his job instead of being a typical Saiyan and spoiling for a simple fight, and allowing Black to slip back into the future. Black was gone. Trunks couldn't believe it. You did it. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Time travel is not something to be messed with, he simply said. Whis nodded. If I were you, Trunks, I would be going home. Well, with Black gone, Trunks had no reason to stay. After he gathered his thoughts, he thanked Broly one more time and proceeded to head back to his timeline. Goku was a little annoyed about missing this chance to fight himself from a different future, but Broly was not sorry. You need to learn to be not so impulsive, Goku. You are here to protect this planet, not go looking for trouble. Well, Broly, you changed. You're more mellow than before. It's more like I've learnt the proper etiquette to go about things, to think beyond my Saiyan drive. Vegeta was actually impressed.
Impressive. Your father Paragus would have been proud of you.
Paragus. Broly rolled that name on his tongue, and then scowled.
That lowlife, who abandoned me on some barren world? No, I do not care about what he would think.
Vegeta was confused. An odd reaction. Paragus had been devoted to his son, and with Whis, they headed back home, the angel keen for the prince to not stoke that fire any further. So, Masako, was Trunks' reality saved? Well, sadly not. With future Zamasu seeing that his plan had been foiled, Black never returning, he made himself known to Trunks because he had no choice and eviscerated him and his time machine. He wouldn't be going back for any more help. The Zero Mortal plan was still realised, but in a different and less epic way, and the present team never knew about this. Shame. Broly was only protecting his own reality from outside influences. Anyone else's lot? Well, that was their problem to fix in his mind. With the events of Super now curtailed, time progressed faster. Goku and Broly met a few more times when the former was alive, but as the years dragged on and mortal aging got the better of Goku, Broly had little need to go back to Earth. Besides, he had been granted a stay of execution from aging, since he was a guest on Whis Beerus' home. A gift from the gods. But speaking of Beerus, he had not woken from his slumber, and he did not wake for centuries, until one day he was forced awake. The Grand Priest had come to visit him, and to strip him off of his title there and then. Beerus was terrified. He turned to see the Saiyan and his eyes trembled. The GP continued. You may continue in your position for a while longer only if you properly train this Saiyan to be your successor and candidate for your role. If you do not agree to this, then I have the power to remove your title now and bestow it upon your candidate. But it is not an ideal act and could be a little messy. Do your universe the right thing for once, Beerus, and go about the proper channels, would you? Beerus was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He cursed himself. He had run away from his troubles, instead of confronting them, and those troubles had made his mind up for him, clearly. He had effectively been fired, but he did have the choice to either go gracefully, or to go disgracefully. Now, he chose the former. Apparently, Broly had impressed Whis and the GP whilst Beerus was asleep, and putting Beerus' sleep schedule into sharp relief, and realising how detrimental it was to Universe 7 and its prospects. In the end, Broly did replace Beerus after a few more centuries of training. After all of this, quite frankly, Beerus was relieved to be done with this whole gig. His heart was just not as in it as it was before, since Broly shook his world. Saiyans, what a scummy race, he thought. Saiyans had been a thorn in his backside for too long, but now, with retiring, he could be truly done with them. Retire somewhere where he would never have to see or hear about Saiyans ever again. Whis was sad to see Beerus go. He had a very unique way of going about things, but in the end, it was for the best for Universe 7 for Beerus to go. now it had a sampling of Broly's way of governance, in the style of an angel, with Beerus simply providing him the tools and tricks to do the job properly. Broly went on to be a very good destroyer, just and fair, never allowing his impulses to get the better of himself again. He thanked Goku for that. Had he never met Goku, ironically, he would have never gotten his inferiority complex down, realised the fraud that Beerus was, and understand his future role. But nevertheless, what this scenario taught us, or at least made us think more about in future, is that Whis is not our friend, nor good with mortal life when it comes to nurturing. This is where we end things, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!